right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the SGGQA podcast. This is the Monday Morning Tech Chat. I am Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka SomeGadgetGuy, which is the SGG of this terribly named podcast series. But the QA is the important part. I'm gonna put this up here right up front, especially for you fine folks who are already jumping into the live chat this week, joining me this week. I have a stupid heavy news block, so I'm gonna try and blitz through news, but I might need a little help just for have your Q&A hats on. We can chat about some other stuff. I've got a lot to ramble on about Apple Lossless and spatial audio and some of that fun stuff. And I wanted to talk about some gear that I've got in-house reviewing, but I couldn't get a second camera up and running, ready to go. So we can definitely kind of spare some time at the end for tech questions, commentary, and all that fun stuff. Like I said, news block is silly heavy, so I'll try not to hit it too hard. Hey, welcome. Thanks everyone for jumping in. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. We're kind of getting into the flow. This week was interesting just because my daughter's out of school, so we're trying to figure out like what does summer vacation with a 5-year-old look like these days. DTNL, second camera is an Only Wands exclusive. Well, the second camera is right over there, and I couldn't find my HDMI cables. And I have my super cheap HDMI adapter over here. So I use an Aja UTAP for the main stream, for the main show. At some point I'll have to upgrade. But I just use this little cheap thing to plug in. And I was trying to move the camera, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I have no idea where my cables are. They're in a box somewhere over there. I was up until midnight last night trying to write some scripts. I'm doing some coverage for reviews.org. And I finally broke down and took my first listens through Apple Music Lossless with spatial audio branding. And I'm a little foggy this morning. I'm on 2 cups of coffee, so hopefully the show goes. Oh, all the housekeeping. I mean, if this episode of the podcast never left housekeeping, we don't have a lead sponsor this week, so that's fine. I don't feel bad if we crater the show. Let me just tell you about the wonderful Brussels sprouts I made. We wanted to have hot dogs, and I thought, hey, you know what would be nice? I haven't roasted Brussels sprouts in a while, so we'll have something moderately healthy to go with our hot dogs. And Gary the Fireman jumping in with some tier 1 subs to Andy and Dustadore. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for supporting. And I had one other, who was it? Sports Nerd 35 subscribing on the Twitches. Also, Gary the Fireman subscribing himself on the Twitch. Again, super huge thank you. I definitely appreciate it, and someday I will get good at Twitch. A part of the conversation in here was leading up to the fact that even though I stream on Twitch, I rarely know WTF is going on Twitch. Brussels sprouts are love. I don't do them very often, but I should do them more. I think they are delicious. It's a little olive oil, you kind of toss them. I like going heavy on the black pepper, although Marie and Lex, not as big a fan. So yes, I hope you all had a phenomenal weekend. If you caught the Thursday stream with TK and I, we're in that kind of just a little bit of a lull before we get to the second half of gadget announcements and product releases, and I'm still catching up on review content and videos that I want to make. I'm getting some more stuff out there, but this just definitely seems like the time to kind of follow up on products. There have been a number of software updates, and Android 12 and betas and iOS, and some interesting things to talk about. It doesn't have quite the same kind of meat when we get like a new phone and we want to show it off. So it's been an interesting cycle of commentary this year, especially as we're all trying to figure out like what's going on, how trade shows are going to work. I kind of slept through E3. I really wanted to pay more attention to it, but it was really difficult to kind of track down what bigger trends and announcements were happening not going to the show floor. I feel like the way that E3 handled press this year, not as good as some of the other trade shows that have tried to make adjustments for a post-pandemic world. It was a little, basically my inbox just got slaughtered with press releases. And at that point, everything is just noise and I don't know what to follow up on. So I'm probably not going to hit that too heavy this episode because I don't know what to talk about. I have one little bit of Microsoft news that I think will be interesting, and other than that, it's going to be it's going to be more like tech and politics and antitrust and music. So the second half of this, we're going to spare more of that time for Apple Music. All right. Why don't we try to knock out some housekeeping, because I'm crazy slow at that. And what are my over-unders? I saw 33 minutes for housekeeping, and then I saw, what was the least? 11? Did anyone go under 10 minutes? Oh, Gary the Fireman is saying I can do this in 8 minutes. All right. It's 9:06 in the AM. Let's see what happens. Because I'm just getting back up to speed, there's not as much housekeeping. So that's actually not too bad. The videos that I got out, like I said, commentary, updates. I got a short out on YouTube talking about the V60 and support for USB audio recording. I did want to highlight this just because I always think it's funny. If you make a video about a less popular product in the technology space, and if there's any correlation to a Samsung product, the mere existence of your video will encourage Samsung Knights to tell you how they already have a Samsung product. I don't know. It's like a beacon. It's like a bat signal. So I made this video. It's called Make a Smartwatch Leash for Your Phone with Wear OS. It is one of my perpetual shock disappointments. It's one of my favorite features from the Pebble. You would get this great singular notification whenever your watch would drop Bluetooth signal, and it actually did help save me from losing my phone a couple of times. 2 very specific times. One time I almost left it in a bar, and one time it had fallen out of my bag in one of the chairs at a trade show. And I got the alert, and I was like, oh, wait, where's my phone? And I was able to go back in both cases and pick up my phone. So it really bothered me that so few other smartwatch and wearable solutions had similar notifications, a leash notification. I think the most glaring is the Apple Watch. If anything is going to tie you to your phone and act like a security device, and all of the location tracking that Apple is just opting you into, like you don't even have a choice anymore. You're going to support AirTags because you own an iPhone. It just drove me crazy. So I made this. Apparently there is a developer setting in Wear OS that you can activate this leash function. And of course, as soon as I published it, I think one of the first comments I got was like, oh, my Samsung watch already does this. And I got a bunch of tryhards telling me all about their Samsung watches. And it was like everything I could do to not just get mean. Because at the same time, you're like, well, if Tizen's so great, why is Samsung going to roll over and start making Wear OS watches, which we should be hearing about their next Galaxy watch not running Tizen soon, like in the next couple of days. But again, it's Samsung Knights. They have to make the conversation about them, even when it's about a product they don't own. And we feel sorry for them. We feel bad for them because their lives are so meaningless. That was really mean. All right, let's move on. Yeah, Gabaletta, I'm serious. Like almost every comment on that video was like, but my Samsung watch already does that. I have nothing in my life to define who I am other than the Samsung label which adorns my products. All right. Um moving right along. Again, I was saying it's so hard. Not getting nasty. But that's where we're at. I made a video to try and help out Wear OS people. Why are you brigading on my Wear OS video? All right. Moving right along. In the ongoing saga of whenever I'll finally get off my butt and do something about cameras or maybe upgrade, Panasonic threw me a curveball. So after this move, I was seriously looking at the budget and the finances and like selling off my Micro Four Thirds camera gear, maybe going Sony. And one of the issues that I've had is autofocus. So it at least is going to afford me a little bit of padding, a little bit of timing, because Panasonic put out a major update for the Lumix G9, which is my main studio camera. I still think, I genuinely do, I genuinely believe that if you're shooting in more studio style conditions and you're not looking to vlog, the G9 represents one of the most cost-effective ways to get very high-quality 4K 60 frame per second video. I really think it's good, and if you pair it with a super fast lens, you can get pretty close to the sort of the look and feel in a smaller space that you might you might appreciate from a full-frame camera. It's more work for your lighting. You have to be very selective about your lens choices, and obviously that crop factor can be very frustrating to work with. But all in all, it's been a phenomenal budget studio shooter. And I say budget, it is an expensive camera body, but it's like a quarter the price of getting 4K 60 on a full frame camera. So they updated the firmware for the G9, and the autofocus got noticeably better. So I'll be able to hold off for a while. And if you want to see some of the most hilarious, low budget, low effort, bad lighting camera tests of how autofocus works on a mirrorless camera, it's me jumping around the office trying to fool the autofocus on my G9 and to show you the pre-update autofocus, which is garbage, and the post-update autofocus, which is a little less garbage. So it's fun. You get like close-ups of my face as I'm running at my camera and jumping out of the frame. And then lastly, let me get this up here. I finally felt like the tools in Gadget Lab 4 were conducive to putting together a bigger review. Last week, if you remember, I did a review on the Infinix Note 10 Pro, a nice little budget phone for international markets. And that was sort of the test. I hated putting it out that way. Like, if this video crashes and burns and I can't really pull it off right, I want it to be on a phone, on a budget phone with a little less interest in my audience, not like, hey, this is a major video that I need to put out. Well, I finally finished up my Xiaomi Mi 11i video. Again, a big question on is this a budget flagship or a premium mid-ranger? It definitely occupies this kind of crossover tier of phones, you know, sort of the higher end, maybe a OnePlus 9, some of the Poco phones, slightly lower end. So this is like smack dab in the middle, in between all of the various, kind of nicer smartphones. These are phones that are gross overkill for daily driver average consumer use, but they're nice, and they kind of cross us into that tier of phones about the feels. Like, it feels nice, it feels more exciting, it's a little bit more emotionally satisfying. Simon says no, it's a mid-premium flag ranger. I may or may not steal that and credit you appropriately. That is phenomenal. I like that. Mid-premium flag ranger. That's awesome. And Dustadore, how does it feel in the hand? It feels really nice in the hand. It's not made out of any broken or rusted razor blades. I don't see any twisted rebar. So when you put it, like if you're an evolved primate, like you have an opposable thumb, when you put it in your hand, it doesn't automatically dislocate any of your fingers. So it's an accomplishment. It really is. I mean, it's a marvel of engineering that an organization looking to build products for primate grips has succeeded in making a product for opposable thumbs. So, I mean, you should definitely take that to the bank as wizened tech commentary. Dustador, I got my tetanus shot, so I'm good, but I really like non dislocated fingers. Dave Burns, again, being the contrarian. If it won't break my hand, why would I buy it? So, Me 11i, I'm really proud of that video just because, like, I kind of was pushing Proto Gadget Lab 4 to its limits, where I even lined up like a shot using a TV as kind of a backdrop to talk about software updates and stuff. It needs more work, and I need to get like a stool so it's at the right height. It's a little too low because I'm standing over it. There's a lot of stuff that I need to figure out, but like I like my lighting better. I was able to move around better. This space is more open and it's a little more fluid, so I'm really excited. There's so much work that I need to finish up on, but it's looking really sharp so far. So, Simon says Hypno, seven different Mi 11 variants now. I think they need to try harder. Oh, I feel because there's like the Mi Mix and there's the Mi 11 Ultra. I don't know. I really feel like Xiaomi just needs some premium label. Like, I'm gonna be sending my Mi 11 Lite to another reviewer. They just want to take it for a short test drive, and this is just was a surprisingly good phone. The Mi 11 Lite kind of coming in. Ooh, one of my phones is definitely popping my speakers there. I have too many active SIM cards right now, so I might have just hit them all at once. Radiation. Oh no. Um, but yeah, sorry. Mi 11 Lite at around like 300 ish, depending on what market you shop it in, is such a phenomenally good piece of hardware. I mean, increasingly, like if you're not concerned about high performance tier pocket computing, I really need folks to start shopping more mid range, like proper. And mid range is in like $300 to $400, not 6 to 7. So I feel like Xiaomi could do with some kind of better delineation if this is a Mi 11 and this is a Mi 11. That there's a lot of DNA that they share, but they're not the same tier of phones. They're not the same product with just some slightly different features. They're different phones for different consumers in a way that's fundamentally different than like Galaxy S21, 21 Plus, and 21 Ultra. And Chatty Boy, but one, the A88 is important for my Instagram photos. McCorcoran 3. I use my A88 to make s'mores. Definitely one of the better uses of an A88. And Pat Ghostin, the obligatory question, video out from the USB-C or a desktop mode, not on a Mi 11. I don't know. Well, maybe the Ultra, but I don't know of any Mi 11s that, or any Xiaomi products, now that I think about it, that support full USB 3 and have video out. Someone please correct me there because I know I'm probably missing something, but the Black Shark didn't have it. And that would be a perfect fit. Being able to plug video out into a gaming phone so you could game on a TV, that would make total sense to me. And Simon says, Hypno, I don't think any Xiaomi do. The only one I think might would be the Ultra. Like maybe they would build in proper USB 3 support there, but I don't know. So this next week I'm going to have a showdown where I'm going to pit the Mi 11i against the OnePlus 9, where the OnePlus 9 is a slightly more expensive phone. So I think it's going to be an interesting showdown of like budget versus features, focus, streamlining. It could be. as soon as I picked up the Mi 11i, all I wanted to do was pit it up against a OnePlus 9. All right. That's housekeeping. I ran long. I did not hit 8 minutes. Was so close. I was so close, and then I had to kind of ramble on a little bit more about the Mi 11i. And Doc Harish is saying Ultra's still USB 2, I think, and that's kind of a bummer. I mean, even just for like silly things like file transferring or plugging in external media or storage. And I know, like, again, it's kind of learning the wrong lessons from iPhones, right? An iPhone only has USB 2. I guess that's all average consumers need. And instead of like doing anything to highlight the differences or the features or the things that are better on your phone, it's like we all just roll over to Apple marketing. And I'm real tired of it. It's exhausting. I was kind of lurking in someone else's stream, and it kind of like broke down. It was like, well, yeah, I mean, like, Apple features aren't as good, but who even knows about what you can do on Android phones? Because Android manufacturers never advertise. And you're like, we're supposed to be techies. We're supposed to be at least intellectually curious enough to push the settings icon in our camera app, because we don't need to leave the camera app to find the settings like we do on an iPhone. It's like it couldn't be easier, really, to see what's in there. Oh, but I don't even know, like, Google Lens, does that even work? Like, I don't know. Try it. When did we just like watch Apple commercials and make that real life for technology? So yeah, not great. So Simon says Hypno, according to GSM Arena, no USB 3. This is one of those things where if GSM Arena didn't really test it themselves, they might be missing it. There have been a few where I've gone in, like things like 4K video on selfie cameras. If they built their spec sheet off of an earlier leak or press release, I found a few where those updates didn't make it to the spec sheet after launch. And so again, USB 3 is one of those things that like not a lot of people are directly searching for. So it could be wrong. I don't know. Anyway, that like I said, that was housekeeping, and we ran long anyway. Okay. We're gonna get into some news. All of the stories, all of the articles, the housekeeping, everything. Those links, if you want to catch these articles and stories, everything will be available on the show page for this week's episode, SomeGadgetGuy.com. Aditya Anil, you're telling me that GSM Arena doesn't base their spec sheet off of units they have in hand? Okay. So the thing about GSM Arena is they start building that spec sheet before the product launches. Like that's the only sane way to do it. But again, when you're talking about every single little bullet point piece of information about a phone, it's not hard to overlook something like specific. Like missing one video setting on a selfie camera on a phone, right? So it's not anything to besmirch. Like GSM Arena is always up in my web browser. Like as a resource, I don't think I ever don't have GSM Arena accessible somewhere. They're phenomenal, and I'm good friends with a number of their crew. Like they do amazing work. I just think it's also an insurmountable task to get everything 100% correct all the time. And USB 3 could be one of those things that's easy to overlook. Dustadore. I'm a tech tuber. I don't need to check GSM Arena or email the manufacturer. I make the monies anyway. Yeah, I mean, we definitely know of some videos where wild speculation about what a phone could do while they're holding the phone in their hands, and they don't try testing it. Yeah, that live stream was cracking me up. And again, it was people I really like. So it wasn't like, oh, these people are terrible. But it was like, you've got the phones there. Why are you asking? Just open the phone and try it. Like, I don't understand. When did we stop really testing these things or reviewing products? Anyway. let's chew out some of this news because I really don't want I really don't want the news block to increasingly bloat. The whole point of the news block was to keep up with stories over time, especially things that are sort of technologically, or I should say, politically critical to the technology space. And this is all kind of the growing sentiment of consumers and politicians looking at larger tech organizations, and it's it's interesting to see how different regions are also tackling some of these similar issues, but it's very common. I mean, we're talking about massive corporations, and we're trying to get a handle on how we should do business with them. And this is going to be an aggressively moving target with probably another decade of legal wrangling before we figure out today, let alone what technology will look like in another 10 years. Oh, and Aditya, we will be getting to rights repair. That is one of the evolving stories on our docket. But lately, I want to start off with antitrust. Lately, this has been a really hot political topic, and a number of politicians are looking to these types of investigations as ways to kind of further their own careers. Like, our interests are actually aligning with politicians' interests in a very strange, kind of muddled way. But this one kind of caught my eye. I caught it first on 9 to 5 Mac, but it's obviously been around on a number of different outlets. Another antitrust investigation opens as Japan investigates, or as Japan examines, Apple Google duopoly. Very interesting article coming here by way of Ben Lovejoy at 9 to 5 Mac. Japan Times cites an unsourced Nikkei report. The government will start investigating how Apple Inc. and Alphabet's Google deal with Japanese smartphone makers, which could lead to the tightening of antitrust regulations. A government panel, which consists of officials, bureaucrats, and external experts, will kick off the discussion this month as Apple's iOS and Google's Android software stands at more than 90% of the Japanese smartphone market. The probe will include input from executives from domestic smartphone handset makers as well as manufacturers of smart speakers and personal computers. The panel will evaluate business dealings in Japan and whether they are conducted in a fair manner compared with cases overseas. The government may step up antitrust regulations if the panel finds any issues from the probe, the paper said. We try to race to this kind of lowest common denominator competitive idea. And right now in the tech space, it's like pulling teeth to try and get some kind of consideration outside of a two horse race. So if you're talking software, it's iOS versus Android. If you're talking phones in the United States, it's Samsung versus Apple. We keep trying to reduce when instead we should be looking at competition. We should be looking at broadening the market, finding more specific solutions for maybe smaller niche demographics. And we eventually find ourselves in a place where we only have the illusion of competition. We don't have real competition. So this is another one to keep an eye on. I'll be curious to see how Japan responds, or reacts, I should say, to some of this market analysis. Like, we're already seeing a lot of pressure in the EU that it's pretty likely Apple is going to have to figure out some loophole that they can exploit for other payment services or allowing other app stores to do business through iPhone and iPad OS security settings. We're pretty confident at some point Apple is going to have to cave on something. We've already seen sort of the reaction from Google. Like, Google has kind of always allowed you to install apps from other places. You can have other app store style organizations and payment services. Like, nothing is tied directly to Google as a walled garden. But again, you still want to examine how they do business with their developers and whether or not there's any conflicts of interest there. So it's tricky. Every region is going to be looking at the countries that came before that set some kind of legal precedent, and then how they're going to sort of enact their own legislation for their own citizens. Sorry, I just saw a conversation, jumping down about Ralph Nader. I'm a big Ralph Nader fan, so we'll get to right to repair. Um, from Gormlord, companies like Microsoft drop out of the race, though. That's not Google's or Apple's fault, right? Well, in a way, you got to look at sort of how to untangle whether or not something is because of the direct pressure of an Apple Google monopolistic business sense. You know, Microsoft dropping out of a phone operating system. So we're talking phones. We got Windows Phone. Well, one of the greatest pressures at that time were app stores, so getting developers on board. And when you're building Windows Phone and Google purposely breaks your ability to utilize Google services on Windows phones, making inferior apps for Windows Phone users, and then also working very litigiously to stop third-party app developers from putting Google services in more meaningful ways. And again, like, look at all the work that, what was his name? Rudy June? I can't remember what his last name is. That's going to drive me nuts. Like, all the amazing work he did in kind of untangling Instagram so that you could have an Instagram six tag. You could have an Instagram app on a Windows phone. So those types of pressures need to be examined from some kind of overall market analysis, and that needs to then be weighed politically. Was it a harm that was enacted to drive out competition and to work against consumers? I just remember, like, sort of at the peak of my Windows Phone usage, I was mostly using the browser. It was actually kind of nice. I had bookmarks, and then I would stick those bookmarks to to live tiles, and I was doing fine. I was kind of into Google Plus at the time, and I had a great, shortcut to get me right in and using Google Plus on my Windows phone. Rudy Hune, thank you, Chatty Boy. I'm embarrassed that I forgot what Rudy's last name was. So it's not as complicated as just, well, Microsoft failed and they left. That the pressures of the market also need to be kind of detailed to figure out, like, how we got here, and that's tough. And I don't know that it's a legal question that can be answered in its entirety, but we can look at market pressures and market forces to see, do they exert undue influence over the market, and does that influence chill competition in the consumer space? And I think a lot of politicians will probably lean into yes, it does. Let me get this out of the way here. Oh, Dustadore. Google Plus actually wasn't terrible. I spiked, again, as like being an influencer. I think at one point, like when I started using Google Plus, I climbed pretty quick to like 30,000 or 40,000 circled followers on Google Plus. And it really was YouTube that just tanked. Again, it sort of destroyed my desire to use Google Plus when they stapled all that together. It's kind of gross. Do you remember Google Buzz? Yeah, that was even worse. Moving right along in other Google news. See, McCorcoran, you gave me the best segue. Google should be declared a public utility, Ohio lawsuit demands. This is written up by Richard Nieva at CNET. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost filed a lawsuit against Google on Tuesday, asking the court to legally declare the search giant a public utility akin to electricity and gas providers. The lawsuit also alleges Google hurt its rivals by prioritizing its own products and services in search results, displaying them above those of competitors. The case doesn't seek any monetary damages. No monetary damages. We're not gonna slap a fine on Google. We just want Google to be owned by the public, um, in Ohio. Yeah, I'm definitely a left leaning, bleeding heart socialist, pinko commie fascist jerk. This one is a bridge too far for me. I feel trying to force Alphabet to become some kind of public utility is probably not gonna happen. Simon says hypno, but fines are meaningless to Google anyway. Yes, this is absolutely accurate. Anything that's short of like an actual percentage, like, hey, for your transgressions, you're going to give us 10% of your yearly profits. Anything short of that would really affect their bottom line is basically just a minor tax to encourage that to continue doing their current business model. This one just kind of tickled me. Like in all of the conversations that have been cropping up about maybe breaking up large, there's another article we're going to talk about breaking up bigger businesses coming from the House. Out of nowhere, Ohio's like, nope, own it, public utility, it's ours now. And you're like, I don't think that can happen. I don't think Ohio has the political clout or fortitude to pull that off. Oh, so McCorcoran. So here's the deal. This is a great point. And I wish I could put your comment up on the screen. So McCorcoran says you could argue some of these big social media platforms should be public utilities just because of their market share. they've displaced other more traditional avenues of public discourse. Absolutely. The issue I have with this is the conflating of Google as one singular solitary entity. Are we talking about Alphabet? Are we talking about just Google and Google as a search engine platform? Are we talking about all of the plugin and subsidiary companies that kind of attach themselves to Google? Are we talking about YouTube? Again, Yoast in Ohio. Is it Yoast? Yeah, Dave Yoast. This is politically incomplete, and it's sort of legally lazy in the way that they're describing what it is that they're trying to accomplish. They even make a point, in the CNET article. The suit does not argue that Google's dominance of internet search is good or bad when viewed in isolation. Those issues are left to be resolved elsewhere. Accepting this fact, the first claim is narrowly focused on establishing that Google's provision of internet search is properly classified as a common carrier or public utility under Ohio common law. So they're trying to carve search out of Google, but that's not what Google is. So if you pull search out, how do you disentangle that from ads, marketing, video, streaming, algorithms, AI, machine learning? What makes Google search the product that it is this sort of vertical that they've created of all of this other data that feeds into it. So if you could just pull google.com, public utility, who's going to operate it, how are they going to manage it, what information gets fed to it. And this is the issue I have with politicians in trying to step into tech. It's naive. It's incomplete. It's simple and it's naive. I was mad because I went to the Google and I searched for something and I didn't see all the things that I wanted to see. It seems to be kind of the dumb argument that politicians are using for trying to control or break down some of the the regulations and protections for social media platforms. So it's really messy. I do kind of believe what the next story is probably a better track to start down. The idea that you're just going to own a part of Google, say that they're common carrier, when we can't do that for the internet. I mean, I really want you to think about that. We've had years of politicians now playing with net neutrality, saying, oh no, the internet is an information service, not a telecommunication service. And here, Ohio's trying to say Google search should be a public utility, not the internet, but somehow Google search qualifies for that. Again, I feel like our priorities are a little out of whack there. And told there probably should be an ownership restriction on how much social media one large company can own, like there are with newspapers and TV stations. And told the Telecommunications Act of 96 there were much more strict ownership standards for cable and newspaper. The internet's just not regulated for that kind of stuff at the moment. There could be a room for publicly funded social media like PBS or BBC does. I don't disagree with that. I think that is entirely on point. It's still... Let me get into this next story because this kind of evolves on a part of the conversation, because this is now at the federal level, coming by way of The Verge, written up by McKenna Kelly. Excuse me. House lawmakers introduced 5 bipartisan bills to unwind tech monopolies. The proposals could reshape the tech industry as we know it. On Friday, House Democrats introduced 5 new bills meant to chip away at the power of big tech companies, targeting a variety of practices that antitrust advocates say are stifling competition. The measures are the House Judiciary Committee's historic 16-month-long investigation into the business tactics of companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. With this new slate of bills, Congress is getting ready to legislate based on the concerns raised by the investigation, and the move could reshape the tech industry as we know it. Quote, right now, unregulated tech monopolies have too much power over our economy. They are in a unique position to pick winners and losers, destroy small businesses, raise prices on consumers, and put folks out of work, said Dave Cicilline. I think it's Cicilline, a Democrat out of Rhode Island. Our agenda will level the playing field and ensure the wealthiest, most powerful tech monopolies play by the same rules as the rest of us. The package unveiled Friday includes 5 measures targeting the different ways in which tech companies maintain market dominance. One bill would empower the Justice Department, or FTC, to break up tech firms by forcing them to sell off parts of their business that could create a conflict of interest, potentially forcing Amazon to carve off house brands like Amazon Basics. Well, we can jump out of the article there. That one was actually one of the key issues. I feel some path towards divestiture is probably a better way to go. And Amazon, I think, is a perfect example of that kind of scrutiny. Amazon is this wide open marketplace. Amazon is a direct seller to different consumers. And Amazon is also a whole slate of other services, web backend, storage, media, and social media. I'm streaming this on Twitch, which is a part of Amazon. And so I think if a mega corporation like Amazon can't properly firewall those divisions, then they need to be broken off. I think a great example, I think my bag... No, it's over in the closet. I have the Peak Design camera shoulder sling. I love it. It's one of my all-time favorite bags. You know, when I'm going out, I've got a camera, a couple lenses, and I'm shooting. This thing is just beautifully built, wonderfully designed, and Amazon ripped it off. The Amazon Basics camera bag was almost called the exact same thing as the Peak Design camera sling. Looked almost exactly the same, but was made much, much cheaper and was sold significantly less than the Peak Design brand. I have some friends who operate businesses which now almost exclusively use Amazon services for their customer service and support, and now they're starting to see that Amazon is replicating their business model. So Amazon can set up this marketplace, extract all of this data on sellers and buyers, and then copy it and replicate it for their own benefit, for their own profit. That type of business pollution, that's what needs to be examined for an organization like Amazon. If they can't properly separate Amazon Basics from Amazon Marketplace and compete fairly without ripping off other people's strategies, other people's marketing, other people's intellectual property, then there needs to be a brutal and significant market correction on how Amazon does business. And same thing. If YouTube can't untangle its ad metrics and viewer data and marketing position from Amazon AdSense, from Google AdSense and Google Search, then we need to put a wedge in between those businesses to make sure that they're operating as sort of fair, unique entities, and that there's room for someone else to come in and compete in this marketplace too. So that to me, instead of trying to say immediately, well, this needs to be publicly owned, Amazon Basics needs to be a public utility. As much as I am that pinko commie fascist liberal bastard, I really feel divestiture is a better way to go. Breaking up some of these businesses and services. I mean, I look at Facebook and forcing Facebook to kind of shed off all of these other companies that they've bought up just to hide Facebook services under the banners of apps that kind of proved popular on their own. Again, if Facebook can't demonstrate some kind of compartmentalization internally, then we need to do it externally. So it's just frustrating. I really feel like the conversation is going to get muddled, but this is maybe some of the most aggressive we've seen. I can't get back into my chat. I just blocked someone who was spamming. Come on. There we go, Twitch. Oh, man. Yeah, sorry. McCorcoran 3, Amazon Basics probably got a big boost when MPOW and Aukey products were removed from the store for fake reviews. And yes, this is also true too, right? Social media companies should not be too big to fail. Simon says Hypno, but I divest. Moving right along, but I divest. Okay. Yes, sorry, way more news block stuff. Let's get through this because we're going to shift gears here a little bit. And when we talk about like tech and politics, and we really mean holy crud, the F tech and politics, one to keep our eyes on as this story evolves. I would say this is probably an abuse of power. Coming from our last presidential administration, DOJ forced Apple to reveal data from 2 House Democrats as part of Trump's leaker crusade. Written up by Alice Stanley over at Gizmodo. It recently came to light that Trump-era Department of Justice quietly seized phone records of journalists at the Washington Post, CNN, and the New York Times to suss out their sources as part of the administration's rabid crackdown on leakers. Well, apparently, the witch hunt didn't stop there. In 2017 and 2018, a grand jury compelled Apple to fork over metadata from the accounts of at least 2 Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee, according to a Thursday report from the New York Times. And I actually have to give Apple a little kudos here. While this DOJ action was in place, they were under a gag order from the Trump administration. I have always respected Apple's position on policy like encryption, not building direct backdoors into their products, or at least publicly being the face of, we're not just going to try and unlock a phone for law enforcement. Those types of actions, phenomenal. I really do appreciate Apple being the biggest target out there and being one of the most desirable to find security exploits and to use those exploits to compromise user data. They at least have a public face of refusing to comply with those types of orders. The flip side of that is if you're backing up on any type of cloud service, any data that lives on their servers, if they get a warrant, they have to comply with, the allowing law enforcement to access that information. It's not on your phone, it's on their server. So they can be compelled in that regard. We didn't hear about this back in 2017 because Apple was under a gag order and they couldn't disclose these actions as presented by the DOJ. As soon as that gag order was lifted, however, Apple did reach out to the Democrats affected by this to say, by the way, this is what we were compelled to give up on you. I think it's just an ongoing part of this conversation and data security and data privacy. And again, it's like we can't leave all of this conversation up to private corporations. We need to have a legal component and conversation about law and ethics and where our protections end. You know, we have kind of a right to privacy in this country that's being eroded by how quickly technology is evolving. We had a conversation about this on Twitter, actually on the Discord too, talking about, hey, we'll be able to put your driver's license on your phone. And that's good in theory, but we need to work out what the whole framework is so that if I need to hand my phone to a police officer, what's to stop them from then turning the phone around, face IDing me, and then getting to see the rest of the contents on my phone? And that's a solvable problem. That's not a FUD. You know, like, oh, well, don't do it. It's inevitable. We're going to do that. But we need to have the conversation first about abuses of power, about citizens' privacy, about data security, and how to instruct consumers that these are your rights. Because right now, I don't even think people fully understand. You know, they just click yes on all of the end user licensing agreements to get to the good stuff. So this one is frustrating from the political stance. This happened in 2017, started in 2017 and happened throughout 2018. I feel this is a gross abuse of the Department of Justice and the resources to go after the data of political rivals and leakers from the Trump administration. It's such an authoritarian position to take on someone's personal data. And I feel like Apple's hands were properly tied. I mean, you can fight the U.S. government in some arenas tooth and nail. I don't know that this would have been the right arena for Apple to fight the Department of Justice. But I really did appreciate, like, we're hearing about this now. We're finally getting some information on it now, and that Apple, I think, did the right thing in alerting politicians, hey, by the way, they got all your stuff. We had to. And if anything, if I were a politician, I would be critically anxious about how I was using some type of mobile consumer electronics now. You know, if it was really firewalling that stuff off, I would hope that members on my staff were being much more aggressive in what my data backup policy would resemble. Simon says, Hypno. I know how to break laws. I mean, I probably know more than anyone on law breaking. Very law breaking. Tremendous breaking of law. I break the best laws, all the best laws. You know, yeah. If you want to know how to break laws, you break laws like I do. I don't have a Trump impersonation. I can't pull that off. And again, police just, McCorcoran 3 is saying, police just assume they're allowed to use any of these tactics until the court says otherwise. And that's what legal precedent is. I mean, to a degree, they are allowed. Officer discretion, they are allowed to use your biometric security against you. We have to have the legal conversation with lawmakers and lawyers and judges, and it's going to be reactionary, and it currently is. There's a debate happening right now. You cannot be compelled to give up a PIN or a password. That is the contents of your brain, and it protects the property, the mental property of this. This is an extension of you and your home. You cannot be forced to give up a password. But your face is public information. If you have a driver's license, the state already owns a representation of your face. So your face is not a good lock in a legal sense for protecting the data on your phone. Biometric security. Every time you touch something, you leave your phone password on that surface. that's actually not legally a good lock for a piece of intellectual and privacy defending hardware. And so if you're concerned about this currently, until the courts can wrangle out where do we draw the line at something like biometric security, if we're trying to stop a criminal and there's information on his phone and all we need to do is hold the phone up to his face, what is the legal limit? How far can we operate? How much can we scan that person's face and make a 3D model of it that might be able to trick the biometric security? I mean, like, we've got to figure out what this stuff is, especially as we're going to be putting more personal data on these devices. So it's hard. This stuff is not easy, and we won't really examine those situations until they happen. Someone, right now we're in the courts trying to determine whether or not this biometric lock is publicly accessible information. So the courts are debating it. Court cases are going to play out. That's going to start the precedent. And then from there, lawyers are going to continue arguing the finer details and specifics of how all this goes down. And at the same time, technology is rapidly evolving, and our legal system probably can't keep up with this more reactionary style. We've got to get better about proactively discussing these issues. Again, it's the best way to kind of prevent harms to people, that we shouldn't have to keep learning these lessons the hard way. All right. And one more little bit of Apple news. Again, I don't think this one's going to be as critical as the previous lawsuit that Apple faced for this business practice, but another one to keep our eye on. Again, this leads into our last news block topic. So I wanted to start off with this. Coming by way of Apple Insider, written up by Mike Peterson. Lawsuit claims iOS 14 battery drain bug is example of planned obsolescence. The lawsuit claims that a slew of users have been reporting problems with iOS 14.5, 14.5.1, and 14.6 related to performance throttling and battery drain. More specifically, the complaint attempts to draw a connection between battery drain and performance bugs and allegations of planned obsolescence. Quote, Apple benefits from not having to tell existing and prospective iPhone users that updates touted to add desirable features and to fix security and other bugs have a significant countervailing downside in the form of decreased processing speed and battery life. The lawsuit alleges, we can pause you. Sorry, Apple Insider. The lawsuit alleges that degrading device performance ahead of product launches may also allow Apple to drum up demand for faster phones with longer battery life. I can't tell you the number of people in my circle of family and friends that do not update their phones. They see the update, they know there's security stuff happening, but you know what updates do? Updates slow your phone down. Your phone always runs worse after you update stuff. And we see that play out in Android in a very direct sense, especially recently with so many core features, the under the hood stuff of Android, really focusing on compartmentalizing the operating system and making updates more fluid and easier. You're changing so much stuff under the hood that it does kind of wreck a lot of phones out there. And it's why I've been so vocal about encouraging people to use an update as an opportunity to just hard reset. Just wipe your phone clean, start fresh, and I feel you get a better experience going that way. The flip side for Apple, we've seen them through countless phone generations, and they currently still do it today. But battery throttling as a way to slow the phone down, Apple always puts in kind of the bare minimum sized battery to get you through a solid day of use. So if that's their threshold, that battery ages over time, it degrades, then you suddenly have a phone that can't. And because that battery is not performing up to the spec of when it was new, you're likely to encounter more performance issues, more instability, more apps crashing, phone crashing, UI crashing. So to make sure that doesn't happen, they slow the phone down. They say battery throttling, but really it's CPU throttling to make up for the fact that Apple put in too small of a battery when the phone was originally built. The Apple still does that. The main issue we had with the original battery throttling lawsuit was Apple just did it on the sly. There was no alert, there was no notification, there was no setting that you could examine, just one update to the next. If your battery sort of health was at a certain threshold, they killed your CPU performance, and the only way to bring it back was to replace the battery. But of course, it's also happening at like a year and a half, 2 years after you bought the phone. We're kind of programmed in the United States to think of 2-year cycles because of the old contracts that we're on. You know, it could be a hassle. We could maybe fix it, but wouldn't you rather just buy a new iPhone? And Apple got tagged for millions of dollars in the first battery throttling lawsuit. That this is a business practice that probably benefited them billions of profits. So it's frustrating. That mechanic, that mechanism is still in an iPhone today. It's just now you can go and look at your battery health and you can force the performance back if the battery health is dropping too low, and you just have to suffer probably more instability and faster battery drain. I mean, you have control. What are you going to do? Leave iOS? So, and McCorkern 3, today is my 6-month subversary, which probably means 6 months since Gary paid for my first gift sub. So, I feel this is one of the most insidious anti-consumer business practices that a modern electronics company could engage in. I feel it's a little bit better now that there's some disclosure, but not a lot. So I think this is going to be an interesting court case to follow, because I feel like Apple has done their due diligence in terms of disclosure to avoid FTC-style regulations. There's some expectation that a consumer who's concerned about their battery life can go and look in the settings on the phone and see some data regarding the health of their phone. So I feel like this one probably won't land. But I think it's interesting to see how much in the tech space we kind of take Apple marketing for granted. Like, we kind of take them at their word. They made the best thing here. They said they did. That's as deep as we're going to dig. Did Apple say they made the best? Well, then that's probably true. The consumer relationship with these companies is changing faster than the techie conversation is following. Consumers are kind of getting hip to, why does my phone run like garbage? why is it that I'm spending $1,000 on a phone and after 2 years it's not performing the way that it should? I just updated iOS 14. Why now is my battery life plummeting? What is going on with this phone? And again, I feel like Apple needs to do a better job of disclosing when we change from iOS 13 to iOS 14, we're going to get more demanding with the graphics processing for the UI. Maybe it's something like that. We're going to get more aggressive with radio management. So either your connection is going to suffer as more towers flip from LTE to 5G, or you're going to have a harsher battery penalty. And instead, the consumers are going to Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile and saying, hey, my battery life sucks. And they're saying, like, well, I guess you could turn 5G off if you want better battery life. But that's a problem, because Apple marketed better battery separately from the way that they marketed how amazing 5G was going to be. Think about, like, the iPhone 12 keynotes, right? 5G, the 5G. Then Verizon is like, but if you want better battery life on your iPhone, just turn it off. Verizon had to say that. They pulled that tweet, which is hilarious, but that didn't come from Apple properly instructing their consumers on how to use their products. Apple sold consumers a lifestyle that the iPhone can't live up to. So, again, I get even more critical when techies. I don't expect average consumers to dig through all this. That's why a class action lawsuit at least brings some notoriety, some attention to a problem that people are having. I don't think this one's going to land, but I feel like the education is at least a benefit to iPhone users out there. But if you're a techie, if you claim to have some kind of authoritative voice in the world of technology commentary and you're still playing this, well, I mean, Apple's bar graph showed it was better. I guess it's the only thing that we can do is look at their unlabeled bar graph. Then you're really bad at tech and you have no business recommending or guiding consumers through purchasing decisions. It's also why consumers have given up on techies. Like they're not listening to us, and largely for good reason. Some questions about optimized charging and stuff like that. Again, if you're on an Android, optimized charging is usually just slower charging depending on the thermals in the phone. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up, because I feel like this is an anti-consumer business practice. I feel it leads to more waste as people flip phones more than they need to. And I feel Apple is long overdue separating security updates from operating system updates. I feel Apple could very easily address this. We have this idea of operating system fragmentation being a bad thing. But if there are substantial core components of a new operating system that rely on more recent pieces of hardware, that is bad news for an older phone. We need to get way better about making sure the security of our devices are up to date as best they can be over the longest period of time. We need to stop pretending that the OS update is the thing, because Apple lumps it all together. And I feel like that needs to be separated. I think, coming into iOS 15, there's probably going to be some conversation about how Apple might be forking those ideas apart. But feature fragmentation on iPhones is kind of high. Just because every phone has iOS 15 doesn't mean every phone has every feature of iOS 15, because some of those features are not going to run on A9 processors. Or if they do, it would be such a performance hit to the phone, you would never want to use that. And the same thing kind of happens in Android land too. I'm way more critical about security patching. I'm excited to see how many more features are coming through Google Play service updates. Just because when we got nearby share, it went all the way down to Android 5, I believe, because of Play system updates. So that needs to be, I think, a better business practice. I don't care if a 3-year-old Android phone is getting its 4th operating system update. In fact, often that's probably a bad thing in terms of overall performance. What I care about is that person at least decently protected against bugs and security exploits. So to wrap up the news block, that's a lot of talking on news. This one's coming by way of iFixit. We're going from Apple in what I feel is kind of an anti-consumer business practice. It's bad. It creates waste. It makes repairs more difficult. This is not a good business practice, IMO, to New York State passing a landmark right to repair bill, coming by way of Kevin Purdy over at iFixit. iFixit, my favorite place to dig into phone repair and right to repair news. This is an editorial he wrote up. Today we moved the needle, a right to repair bill that would give everyone the information, parts, and tools they need to fix their electronic devices passed in the New York State Senate, the first such bill to pass in the country. At a virtual session, the Senate approved S4104 by a margin of 51 to 12. Normally, the next step would be a vote on an identical bill in the state's assembly, but Thursday is the last day of session for the New York legislature, and the bill has not yet escaped committee, making a vote by the full assembly unlikely. The battle for fair repair in New York will continue into next year's session with a strong record of success. But don't get the idea wrong, this is big. This shows that right to repair has real support when the issue gets an actual vote, despite the efforts of tech manufacturers' lobbyists. Huge step. Not So much more work to do getting it out of committee in the assembly, getting it to a governor's desk to sign, and then seeing if other states are going to piggyback on this momentum. I would desperately hope California would look at what's going on in New York and go, hey, but what about us? We want to tax people more too, because we're in California, and we're crazy pinko commie bastard liberal people. um, this one put a huge smile on my face just to see any kind of progress. A number of right to repair initiatives across the country have been falling apart at the state level. Again, lobbying works, and seeing how manufacturers have come in to guide those conversations and support those local politicians with money. Money seems to be a motivating factor in speech these days. It's been very upsetting to see how some common sense legislation and some market correcting regulations don't seem to get past some of our state politicians. And now is a good time to keep pushing on these types of topics. The fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, all of the FUD that's spread by major organizations, by Apple, about what would happen and all the calamities that would befall us if there were better resources for third-party repair shops to work on these phones, getting away from serializing parts so that even if you have the right parts to do a good, proper repair, well, you don't have the software to code those parts so that the phone can recognize them. So it's too bad. All of this is a huge burden on consumers. It creates way more waste than we need to live with. And if I believed Apple for a second, for an instant, for a heartbeat, that they cared about environmental concerns when they take the charger out of the box, one of the first things that they could do to address this would be to open up their stance on right to repair. But they're not doing that, because we know all of these business moves are cynical ways to increase corporate profits. They don't really care about the environment. They care about making more money. They care about the environment in that when they take the charger out of an iPhone box, they can ship almost twice as many iPhones on the same pallet. So their shipping costs go down. And isn't that great for the environment? So when all those iPhones are on a polluting ship crossing the ocean, well, they're able to ship more iPhones and they get to save money. You don't get any monetary benefit from that. You have to buy a separate charger. You see, so it's all good for Apple. That's how they benefit the environment. But I'm stoked. The next assembly, when New York state government is back in session, I really hope we can see this make it out of committee. I really hope we can see this on the governor's desk. And this is at the right time where I feel like a lot of blue state governors are looking for ways to change the conversation away from the recent pandemic to other initiatives that might be more consumer popular than whether or not there's a mask mandate happening. So this is a good one. This I feel good about, and we absolutely need to keep our eyes on what's going down in New York. Sorry, I'm going through the comments here. From Kappa Cash, security and core updates are better, but everyone says Android fragmentation. This is blown out of proportion. And McCorcoran also, I read this too. I read a pretty persuasive post on the subreddit for Android. Security fears are overblown with Android. Probably one more way to force people to buy new phones sooner. And I think I caught it on something else too. Where was I? Oh, the Mint Mobile website. I'm thinking about switching to Mint Mobile. I'm on Google Fi. I might go US. Was it US Mobile? They sent. I don't have their card. They sent over a sim kit just for me to demo, and I like US Mobile. It kind of depends on coverage and stuff, but Marie and I were looking at switching away from Google Fi since we're not going to be doing a ton of international travel anytime soon. But we are going to be going out and about more, so we kind of need something better than the way that Google Fi budgets for data. But yeah, I was on Mint Mobile and they're like, well, what happens with old phones? And you're like, well, eventually your phone performance is terrible and you can't use your phone anymore and you don't get updates and apps don't work. And like, that is so grossly oversimplified that it's almost a total lie. But it was kind of playing into that. Like, we have this idea that Android is this open hole, like it leaks like a sieve, and that all of your data is gone and you have no protections against ne'er-do-wells who are going to steal your information. Honestly, it's in many ways it kind of mirrors the Mac OS versus Windows debates of old. When there are issues with Android devices, there's so much more visibility paid to them that I feel like the corrections through Google Play and through a number of apps and updates and services is actually kind of better than Apple, where Apple has a vested interest in maintaining the visibility of security, but they don't always live up to that. Like the recent disclosure during the Epic lawsuit that like 100 million iPhones were potentially compromised, and Apple said bupkis about their security threats. From McCorcoran 3, you could probably fill 100 landfills with just the dumb decision to keep using Lightning for all their accessories on iPhone or audio. And from Lolly DK 1001, if you order a separate charger, it's using way more cardboard and packaging than if it was included in the box. Again, I would believe Apple if the process of buying a new charger came in a simple, recyclable, non-printed brown paper wrapper. In like a little envelope. You don't need a lot of packaging to ship a charger, but if it shows up in a box and like, you know, paper sleeves and like slide out pretty packaging, then you lied. You lied about caring about the environment. Oh, and Welp, I'm Dan, and McCorcoran 3 saying Mint are good prices. Oh, unfortunately, their data doesn't work great in my house, or I would be using it. So the fact that they're piggybacking on the strongest network that we have access to in our new neighborhood, I'm going to take I'm going to get one of their like demo cards, take it for like a 3-month spin. I'm hoping nothing changes there. US Mobile has been great, especially getting to play back and forth between Verizon and T-Mobile network coverage is kind of awesome when you're testing them out. So again, if you're in an area where AT&T has stronger coverage, then yeah, obviously that makes sense. All right, so that kind of wraps us up for the news block here. These stories are all kind of coming together in really interesting ways when we talk about net neutrality versus antitrust regulations and sort of monopolistic business practices, when we start talking about app stores and gaming, when we start talking about right to repair. There's definitely something in the air. There's definitely something happening right now, and I think it benefits us to keep an eye on it, to pay attention to it. Again, don't make it like the news feed for you. I wake up every morning and I'm like, oh, what is Google going to tell me about politics today? So don't do that. Just come join me on Monday mornings and I'll ramble at you for an hour. But this is absolutely the kind of stuff that we need to stay on top of if we're going to guide the conversations for our family and friends. I had a cousin who was like, oh, right to repair. It's that government trying to tell people what they can do with their stuff. I mean, it was actually phrased out of his mouth that right to repair was going to be the government telling you couldn't repair your tractor. And I feel he got that from somewhere. Like, I don't believe he came to that conclusion entirely organically, all on his own, by keeping up with the news around right to repair. And I wasn't able to glean how he came to that conclusion. And Dave Burns, we need to become a loud minority that whines so loudly people need to do something about it. And again, and hopefully people need to join us whining about it. Hey, LFA Reviews, subscribed at tier 1. Again, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you jumping in, your support. Jeff just posted his review on the new Sony earbuds, the XM4s. I can't think of many people that I would trust more to detail their experiences with true wireless earbuds than LFA Reviews. So go check it out. I shared it on Twitter, but he's around. You should be subscribed to his channel with the bell icon smashed. You should hear everything he has to say about audio if you care about your ears. Because I'm going to be real snarky when it comes to Apple Music after we talk about the subreddit. The subreddit that I totally won this week. Ba-boom. All right, every podcast has a subreddit. Mine is no different, but I like to use my subreddit as a way to try and help promote content creators who we all feel deserve more attention. So if you go to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, this is an organic, growing community of people that want to see a broader conversation around tech than what YouTube is going to feed you through popularity algorithms. And every week it gets bigger, and every week we see more cool stuff. And it's not a guarantee. I set up this subreddit. I am the head moderator of this sub. I don't win every week, but I did this week. I'm feeling real good about me. Number 1 with the bullet, my Panasonic Lumix G9 update. I guess I can keep my camera for a little longer in the number 1 spot. And right behind it, my Xiaomi Mi 11i review, checking out MIUI 12.5 on great hardware in the number 2 spot. Ba-boom. Ba-boom. Okay, we don't have to focus on those. Moving right along, we had some great stories in the top 5, though. Sony Xperia 1 Mark III hands-on, going 4K at 120 hertz. Zeiss cameras from Ben's Gadget Reviews. We've got Tech Odyssey, The War on Samsung tablets, scored a number 4 spot, and I'm clicking upvote on this right now. From the lovely and talented Issa Does Tech, Asus Zenfone 8 Flip Camera Tour and drop test. So she's dropping the flip out cameras on the Asus Zenfone 8, kind of her own little durability test. Rounding out the top 10, we had TK Bay trying mustard on watermelon for one of his shorts. That's definitely an interesting departure from our usual gadget commentary. We've got Mark 10 with 45,000 subscribers checking out the XTAR SN4 Mark. This is a Kickstarter, looks like some kind of battery modular charging assembly that I don't know anything about. I have not watched that video. Adam also talking about the Titan Pocket, a keyboard-enabled Android phone for BlackBerry fans. And GameSki, also checking out the Sony WF-1000 XM4. I'll add GameSki to the list of dudes you should probably follow who like to talk about Audio Kit. I guess he's pretty cool too, but you need to subscribe to Jeff first. All right, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Let me just see real quick. I think we're up 10. What were we? Yeah, we're up 12. 12 subscribers over last week. This is grassroots. I mean, I'm not trying to rig Reddit's algorithms or try and hype things up. I mean, this is growing and building its own unique community, and people are finding new content creators on the regular here. We need your participation. We need your upvotes. We need your comments. And we also need sharing. Again, a content creator lives and dies by whether or not their content can be sort of discovered by new audience. And if it can't, then it dies. And YouTube actively stands in between you and potential audience based on their own popularity algorithms. So this is our opportunity to try and kind of take back a little of that power. And it comes from your participation. Again, organically, this is growing every week, and people are discovering it every week. And we got to do something. I need your suggestions to do something fun, to do something silly for when we break 2,000 members on Glowing Rectangles. We got to celebrate it, because I totally dropped the ball on celebrating 1,000 because I suck. I don't want that to pass us by with 2,000. So Gary the Fireman is correct. Jeff's reviews are the gold standard. Absolutely accurate. Again, I know there are a bunch of guys that do great work talking about headphones. It was Jeff's videos that convinced me to come back to test drive True Wireless. I really had written off True Wireless earbuds as anything more than just kind of like lame convenience arguments that were more expensive than like neck bands or on-ear headphones. And Jeff kind of brought me back around. I like in 1 week I like watched everything he ever made talking about headphones. So I huge respect for what he's done for this conversation, especially for folks that care about their ears. All right, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Check it out. All right. I want to talk about two, in what would normally be our gadget block. I want to detail two stories real quick. Just again, I had to break up the politics news before I jump into Apple Music. Aditya Inil pizza party at 2,000 members on Reddit. Actually, you know what? I can't send you pizza, but I think if the day we break 2,000 members, anyone who wants to share photos of pizza will become a pizza photo sharing subreddit for a day. I think that's hilarious. Anyone? Do I have a second for that motion? Please leave your comments in the live chat. But yeah, I'll totally back pizza party. I just can't buy you the pizza. Let me get this out of the way here. Oh, and Welp, I'm damn. Yes, I pizza support. I pizza support too. From Hubbard Zero, I've been a little disappointed seeing the conversation around True Wireless like the new Sony XM4. Big tech reviewers claiming them to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but lacking many features compared to my Jabra 85T. I feel you're touching on a part of the conversation that I get real cranky about, where Jabra probably doesn't score as big for SEO. I mean, if you were to look up Jabra 85T versus Sony XM4 on Google Trends, I think if you saw one line bigger than the other, it wouldn't be a tremendous surprise. And I don't expect consumers to fully understand all of the various little differences in features and price and performance, what one pair of earbuds can do over another. But this is why I'm entirely critical of reviewers who try to act as their objective authorities in talking about tech, when really I feel a number of these channels are trying to chase the analytics. They're not leading the conversation. They're reacting to what's already popular. And if you only cover what's already popular, you make a lot more money on YouTube. YouTube wants to reinforce that echo chamber and keep people watching videos, time on site. So you're not going to get a lot of the balanced comparisons, and it's really difficult. Like, again, if you put in the effort to make an XM4 versus Jabra 85T, that's not gonna score as well. You will not get as many hits if you do XM4 versus AirPods Pro. That's just the sad reality of what gadget commentary looks like today. And it's why I keep threatening, like, I really got to make more of my stuff written. Like, instead of shooting video after video after video, like, I really should be trying to publish more text articles just to reduce my workload so that I can cover some of these things a little bit more broadly. All right, this one hit close to home, because anytime something like this goes down, well, actually, like, Gamers Nexus put it best after NVIDIA started getting weird about Hardware Unboxed. But Hardware Unboxed finds themselves in yet another scandal, looking at a PR arm, a marketing arm of a major tech manufacturer trying to influence their testing process, trying to guide their editorial direction, and also trying to compensate them monetarily to remove a review that may or may not be negative regarding their product. So, what's frustrating about this is any one of these shenanigans paints the entire manufacturer's discussion. So Gamers Nexus put this really well when Nvidia went after Hardware Unboxed. Now, anytime someone says something nice about Nvidia, it's going to be seen as some kind of quid pro quo, that they're benefiting monetarily from not criticizing Nvidia. And for some reason, we're kind of fine with how lopsided the conversation is with Samsung and Apple for a lot of consumer products. Like, that's fine. Yeah, Apple does always win every showdown on Apple-focused channels that a lot of Apple users watch to get ads and pay Apple-focused creators. That's totally fine. But what happened here with Hardware Unboxed was a part of LG PR reaching out to them to review a monitor. So they get the monitor and they start reviewing it. And then they get a note saying, oh, we need to push back our embargo. They're like, okay, that's fine. Then they also get a reviewer guide that says you've got to only focus on testing the monitor in these ways. And you can't talk about the monitor in other types of tests, which is not okay. Especially not okay because LG did not secure any type of embargo before they sent this monitor out. So Hardware Unboxed is totally within their rights to just publish the review the way that they would have published it. In fact, they don't even need to wait for this new embargo date because they never agreed to that embargo. They're just doing the embargo because it's kind of the nice thing to do. It's frustrating. An embargo slips on you and it sucks because you put all this work into a schedule, releasing videos, and you're like, all right, we'll bump this video and we'll put something else out. When it really comes down to something that definitely crosses the line is when they alluded to some type of monetary compensation. Hardware Unboxed refused to review the monitor the way that LG said they should review the monitor. And in a South Korean translated, somewhat broken English email reply, they basically spell out, this is going to hurt the perception of the product. It's going to, look bad for our company. Is there anything that we can do to have you just pull the review? They don't know if this review is negative or positive. The review has not been published. I don't know that it's been published yet. But at the time they made this this video a couple days ago, the review had not yet been published. And so they're trying to pay or compensate Hardware Unboxed, and they don't know what the content of the review is. Which, to me, that's another very serious red flag that there could be something more seriously wrong with this product. And that's a bummer because LG is known for making good displays, good monitors. They make great screens. So I really don't have much functioning relationship left with LG PR. My big hook was on the phone side of the business, and regionally, the United States team focusing on LG Mobile. LG is this massive international organization. They're not as big as Samsung, but they're huge. I mean, they're just enormous. And so there isn't one LG PR. But it sucks because I've also had so far I think they've all been jokes, but like a couple little digs like, hey, Juan, did you see this thing? Were you getting paid for your reviews? And you're like, this sucks. It really sucks. LG messed up bad, but it wasn't LG. It was this one marketing division for LG displays. And that comes down on everyone. if you've ever said something nice about an LG phone, well, you must have been on the take, because we know LG bribes reviewers. Now, nothing we say about those products can ever be taken seriously, because we all know that that's how business really goes down. And it's frustrating. Again, I had wonderful experiences with LG mobile PR. I mean, I've worked with some of them before they were at LG in other marketing and other PR agencies. And now that the phone division's dead, like, they don't talk to me about anything else. No earbuds, no LG tones, no laptops. I tried to get an LG Gram, just a loaner. I mean, just wanted to show it off. It was like a new laptop, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'll see." And you're like, I'm getting emails from like executives and directors and high level LG employees. We just loved that you were such a super fan of LG products. You always, went the extra mile to talk about our services and to put us in a competitive conversation. And now I'm totally ghosted. LG replies to nothing that I reach out to for additional coverage, for other products, a lifestyle kit, new software that's coming to appliances. Like, I get press releases and then that's it. And like, I'm on the same like email thread that like you could be on if you even weren't a reviewer, if you want LG spam in your inbox. So ultimately, this just kind of is like another nail in a coffin that's been like welded shut at this point. And it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. I really don't like when situations like this pop up. I feel like we need better oversight. I feel we probably need more regulations in this space. It's already tricky how you disclose the material you work with and how you pay for it. If you're accounting for it during your taxes, there's a monetary value ascribed to this stuff. It's really difficult to kind of move through all of those shenanigans. And then one PR rep at LG pulls the most bonehead maneuver with a really big channel like Hardware Unboxed. So I really respect Hardware Unboxed for shining a light on this. It's tough to be the lightning rod in anything that's kind of minorly controversial. So I appreciate that they brought this up. It's just, it definitely is disappointing for me, having been such a ride or die LG smartphone fan, now having to weather sort of the current examination of LG business practices, which had nothing to do with how I ever interacted with LG. LFA reviews. Yep, suddenly we're all LG shills. From McCorcoran 3, I mean, the whole system is basically a giant bribe. LG's behavior was especially sinister. It was strange how the PR employee didn't even seem that subtle about it. I would love to know what was going through that person's head. I feel like there's a way to do this responsibly. It's really difficult, and I don't know where the lines are. But I feel like at first we just need to acknowledge that early access and YouTube algorithms are the main payout. So it doesn't matter if a massive, huge mega YouTuber is paid by a manufacturer to say nice things about their products. We see sponsored videos. We understand what that relationship was. It's properly disclosed. What's not disclosed is if I review this product poorly with a focus on a larger audience who owns a different product, I will monetarily benefit from that conversation. And that's where this stuff gets messy. We don't acknowledge that so much of this conversation is guided by YouTube's extremely aggressive trending topics list. And if something doesn't make the trending topics, it's just not going to hit as well. So you just can't expect all of those really big YouTubers to make videos that don't hit. They've got staffs. They've got to pay those people. They can only make videos about Sam Apple. As long as they only say nice things about Sam Apple, they'll make the most money so they can pay all their people. And that's where we're at. So it's It's not necessarily a bribe, but I feel like Samsung and Apple know how their content's going to go down on a service like YouTube, which is why they structure their embargoes the way they do. So they don't need to bribe anyone to say nice things about their product. That's YouTube's job. YouTube is going to put the carrot in front of them for the proper financial incentive to go out and say nice things so that Samsung owners feel good about buying Samsung products. Samsung only needs to be the stick, where if you step out of line too much, well, we're going to look at other opportunities to work with people to talk about our products. And you just don't need access to review materials. You don't get to be in on the embargo. So even if your content is largely pro Samsung, if you criticize them a little too much, well, you just don't get invited to the next pre-brief. And then all of the other outlets get the scoop where they can put out their content ahead of yours. And then if you're late to the party, Google's analytics say, well, the excitement on this topic is already dropping. So you've just put out your review, but it's a week later than all these other embargo videos. We're not going to push it as hard. We're not even going to send it to all of your subscribers. So that's the relationship right now. Samsung gets to be the stick. You don't get early access. You don't get any access. Your channel is harmed financially by being way behind on review content. By the time I could get my hands on a Galaxy S21, that topic was dead on YouTube. And I had to put out a kind of incendiary, like worst, almost clickbaity title I think I've ever put out, and thumbnail to get any activity on that. And it was basically just angry Samsung nerds. Sorry, I didn't mean that topic to take up as much time as it did. I've got another story here. Microsoft is going to be selling their own streaming solution, is creating a device specifically for Xbox Cloud Gaming. I think we can just kind of push pause on this, maybe until a product is actually revealed or announced, or we can actually buy it. I'm very interested in that. I feel like this is the next step for gaming, but I also kind of feel like the Xbox Series S was the sort of starter for the Trojan horse for game streaming. It's maybe not as powerful as your Series X, but you could use it as this box to help stream your games to your TV in even higher quality. So let's move on. I really do want to wrap up with audio and talk about Apple Lossless, because Apple finally invented gooder music. We've all been dying for it. Some opportunity to listen to higher quality audio, better support, maybe some fun tricks like acoustic modeling of spatial or location data so that we can feel like our audio surrounding us, and just no one would give it to us. There was no solution. Nothing was available for consumers. It did not exist. And audiophiles are meanies who will make fun of you if you don't buy the most expensive gear. And it's good. It's good that Apple finally invented all of this. Jeff, Lossless did not exist before last week. Ditya, I'm glad Apple invented hearing. I was deaf until last week. Oh no, McCorcoran 3. True story. I paid Amazon $50 for HD music the day before they gave it away for free to everyone. Oh man, I'm sorry. That sucks. So I have a script. I wrote a script way too late last night. Again, one of the reasons why I was up late and I'm all rambly and tired now. I don't know that I'm going to make that video. It's so cranky. It's another one of these where it's like, man, I don't know that I can really shoot this video without it just being bitingly mean to a lot of people out there. But are we never going to be tired of this game? I mean, I really want you to think, like, a couple years back, Tidal is making its big push into this market. It's a new music streaming service. One of the hooks is that there's a tier where you can stream much higher quality music. There's a consumer demand for this. There's at least a consumer interest in better quality audio, in better quality music. We've kind of, I think, maxed out this notion of streaming quality background soundtracking. And there are people out there that want to consume music as a primary activity. They want to pay attention. They want to hear something a little nicer. But all this time, like, to hear techies tell the tale, none of those services or features or hardware could ever be worth it. I mean, I guess if you're one of those audiophile nerds, maybe you could like an LG phone, I guess, and with no critical examination of listening to better music. And they, I watched one video from a popular YouTuber talking about, well, I'm not an audiophile. Let me put this out there. I'm not one of those guys, because I feel like the mindset of an audiophile is to be a gatekeeper who will make fun of you if you don't buy the right kinds of gear. And from my experiences in sort of the headphone community and the audiophile community, I feel like so many of us have been bristly about a company like Apple because they make our job so much harder. There is so much misinformation that we need to actively correct before we can get a new potential audiophile into the club. Like, if you've ever sat through a techie review of a gadget and they say something completely inane, like, well, I mean, you can't even like hear the difference for high res music anyway. I mean, you can't even hear it. I mean, you go to like this website and use your ear pods and listen to this like 5-second MP3 versus this 5-second lossless audio track. I mean, you can't even hear the difference. Which, for at least the last 5 years that I've been aware of, scientifically, that's not true. Audio needs an education, but once you acclimate to higher quality audio, it does something to your brain. We enjoy a better representation of audio, and we can hear those subtleties and those nuances. It's not as easy. You're not going to hear them if you're listening on garbage ear pods, but you can. And it doesn't take as much of a steep investment as we think it does. You know, like a decent pair of headphones can get you into learning how to hear better audio. If you're willing to spend $550 on Apple AirPods Max that can't do Apple lossless, and I feel like you could spend a lot less and jump significantly in your audio education. Or the other one, like, oh, well, if you're just listening to streaming and compressed music, there's no point to having a better DAC. I mean, why would you spend money on having a better DAC if you're just gonna listen to MP3s? Which is also completely not true. If you've ever been been watching a review or some type of learned techie commentary and they utter anything like that, never listen to that person ever again for tech advice. They are bad at tech, and they're really bad at audio. The only reason why you would say something like that, like you can't hear the difference in high res anyway, or it's not worth it to have better audio gear for compressed audio, is if you want an audience to feel good about not having those features. The only reason you say something like that is because the audience you're talking to can't do it. You don't need like LDAC on nicer Bluetooth headphones. You can't even hear those differences anyway. No, iPhones can't do advanced audio codecs, so you're telling iPhone owners that it's okay to have a poorer product, to have a poorer representation of their audio. But I mean, like, you can't even hear it. No. The community you're talking to doesn't have access to that feature, so you're telling them that it's okay to not have access to that feature. And now that Apple is opening up the quality of their audio on their music streaming platform, now suddenly we're all just so breathlessly into better audio. Isn't this an amazing update? Apple's so good. I mean, it's not even going to cost you any more to subscribe to Apple Music. You can really, this is great. And again, they're going to be so magnanimous when AirPods Max 2 properly support lossless audio, and they don't even cost more. Apple gave us lossless support for the AirPods Max 2, and they didn't even raise the price. Isn't that amazing? Apple's so magnanimous. Years ago, we've been doing this for years now. So I'm listening. I finally fire up Apple Music. I finally signed up for the 3-month free trial. I'm not paying for it. This is not the service I'm going to give money to. Increasingly, what I'm trying to do is I look at like, what would a family plan on Spotify cost? And if there's any way every month that I could take that lump of money and buy an album directly from a musician, I'm doing that instead. Most recently, I padded out my collection of Vampire Weekend by buying CDs directly from Vampire Weekend's various record labels, instead of having a premium subscription to Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon. Is there any way that I could give $10 to an artist that I enjoy? When RTJ4 came out, I went to runthejewels.com and I gave them $9.99, and they gave me WAV files, and I'm happy. This was a phenomenal business exchange, and I'm well satisfied by that exchange of currency. So anyway, I fire up Apple Music. I update my little iPhone SE, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious that Apple's current hardware solutions cannot take advantage of the new software service that they're coming out with. Immediately, I feel the best way to use Apple Music is probably on an Android device. At least for more consistent and universal support for other USB audio devices that a Lightning connector can't always properly power. But I fire it up, and I did some like A/B listening. I have my Pinnacles. I've got my Mi Audio, my MX3s. Up on the shelf behind me, I was moving back and forth between my Seny, these are my 599s, and then my Odysseys, just for planar magnetics. And the whole time I was kind of popping back and forth between, so I couldn't get my BTR5. This is a FIO BTR5. This is a little Bluetooth DAC that can go over Bluetooth or as a cable connected audio interface. And it's little. I mean, it's like just ever so slightly bigger than my thumb, right? So this is a little thumb shaped puck, and it's wonderful. This is like my top recommendation, Swiss Army knife, how to get the better music to your ears. And plugging it into my iPhone SE, it only ever seemed to register as a CD quality DAC. Plugging it into an Android phone, it shows up at 384K. So if you want to listen to DSD files, technically this hardware can support that. BTR5, and especially if you're on Android, supports Qualcomm, aptX HD. It supports LDAC. Again, just excellent. And it can go over a cable for just monstrously high audio quality with a decent enough amp to drive some thirstier headphones. Like my Barodynamic, my DT770 Pros, which are 250 ohms, sound pretty good on this little teeny Bluetooth audio adapter, which is great. The only thing that seemed to work well enough for me to kind of drive this experience was my FIO. I almost dropped it. Sorry, I get away from the mic. This is my FIO Q3, which looks like it looks like a hip flask. You know, like if I wanted to like imbibe a little, but it would only be big enough for like a shot and a half. You like dip, 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 dip. But it's just a little hip flask of amazing audio quality and phenomenal. It's a phenomenal little amp. And so I plugged this into it has a USB cable, but it comes with a Lightning adapter. I plugged this in, and this is what I would have to walk around with to properly support lossless, to really drive a good sort of headphone experience and get all of that sonic information properly translated into my ears. This isn't too far off from just having an LG. I mean, like that's where we're at. You've got to walk around with some type of additional hardware, adapter, dongle, something to get into this audio space. And it used to just be built into the headphone jacks on LG phones. I mean, like, this experience is still difficult. It's hard to beat an Axon 7. I've got my LG V20 over there on my little show desk. Still monster audio performer. And all this time, we've been listening to techies go, well, it's just, no one really cares about better quality audio. You just don't need it. You can't even hear it anyway. So, I think the critical benefit for iOS users, this is an easy way to improve the data that's being sent to your ears. It's accessible. Apple Music is kind of an anti-competitive app. Again, Apple gets to use their music player app as a music streaming service pre-installed on your phone. I don't understand how that's not an anti-competitive shot against Spotify. Apple has been feuding with Spotify over how Spotify wants to charge people for their service and not giving Apple a 30% cut just to get access to iOS users. So they went and made their own music streaming platform, and they built it into iOS. I have the same problem with YouTube Music. It's pre-installed not as a music player app, but as a music player app and streaming platform that is immediately accessible from the first time you fire up the phone, and you don't need to go to an app store to install anything else. So, the ultimate mission, and why I get so frustrated about this, the ultimate mission is and always has been, I want consumers to have better audio experiences. I want them to hear better music and hear better movies and play games with better audio. I want that for everybody. But I'm tired of making these concessions for a $1 trillion company in Apple, doing things like gutting the headphone jack off of their phones when they need to push more Bluetooth, and then when they see that there's a consumer interest in higher quality audio that was already built on the backs of Tidal and Amazon, now we're going to do it, and we're going to brand Apple Lossless. And it's already built into your phone. You already have Apple Lossless. You didn't have to pay anything to get it. Isn't that amazing? We can leverage our services on our hardware to knock out our competitors. It's amazing. It's incredible. So I'm mad. I'm mad because this is a tangible perk, a benefit for Apple users, Apple consumers. I hope this spurs on the interest in some of these absolutely phenomenal audio accessories. Again, I shot a video on the Q3. TK Bay was rocking a Q3 for a little while. This is such stonking good hardware. It really is. And the way that it can drive some thirstier headphones like my planar magnetics, I tend to do this over trying to, kind of plug in and use one of my desktop amps. Brilliant. But instead, I'm getting this feeling and I'm getting the sense that Apple's just going to use this as leverage to make their own product, their own service. And again, they're going to copy another company's business model and then push them out of the market. They did it with AirTags. Now they're doing it with music streaming services. They couldn't keep Netflix under their thumb, so they came up with Apple TV Plus. They saw the horizon on game streaming services like Stadia and Microsoft and Nvidia. So they made their own kind of games for iPhone subscription platform that kind of doesn't work well for gamers. Again, it's like Apple's current business model used to be a new technology comes out. You can get it first on Microsoft. You can get it first on Android. And then Apple would wait 2 years and polish it up, and then you'd get an Apple version of that service, or of that feature, excuse me. Now it seems to be, let's look at what business services are popular with consumers, and then let's just rip that off, build it into our phones so that it's not, you can't untangle it from the consumers that we already have, and then we can drive out competition. And time and time again, that's what we see. So the spatial audio thing is interesting. I'm not super popular. Let's just stop there. I'm not super popular. End of show. I'm not super positive. Let's try this. I'm not super positive on spatial manipulation of audio that was already mixed for a stereo consumption. Most music is mixed left channel, right channel, right? I mean, this is easy. Stereo. We have 2 ears. When it comes to movies and games, surround sound can be really interesting for how you fixate and how you locate objects in space based on audio manipulation. So that makes perfect sense to me. Spatial audio for music is wildly hit or miss. Again, I've been seeing tech tubers like, oh, and what the Beatles did with stereo mixing was just so incredible. And I feel like that is historically incomplete, as most Beatles albums were mixed primarily as mono. And the handful of later recordings that were really distributed as stereo recordings were very deliberately hard panned for individual parts of the recording. Like, you might have a voice center channel, drum kit just panned hard right, and guitars panned hard left. And so stereo was this incredible new technology recording technique in the 60s. Again, you look at the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds. When you listen to the differences in the full effect of Pet Sounds in classic mono versus classic stereo, very different audio experiences. But we don't consider this like an open, airy, surrounding kind of audio today. It was a very deliberate, hard setting for what channel an instrument would come in, would play on. And again, not nuanced. Left channel, right channel, center. That was it. So I'm listening to tech tubers like, oh, and I was listening to the Beatles. Well, there's a 2019 remaster of Abbey Road, and it sounds wrong. In fact, it starts to sound more like mono again. When you open up all of this spatial audio, and I'm sure it was done with a lot of care and attention and placing instruments in space, but Abbey Road starts like washing over you like you're in the middle of the band, right? That is a novel experience, but it doesn't sound correct. And when you listen on really good headphones to a really great, older, cleaned up remaster of one of their mono recordings, it kind of sounds the same. You don't need all of this spatial manipulation stuff. So you get into more modern recordings that really play with depth and space and reverb. And if you just run them through some of these spatial audio plugins, they sound off. They don't sound good. Like I love Daft Punk. I hate running Daft Punk through any type of spatial modeling. It just sounds wrong. And at the same time, there are a couple tracks from Tool where the way that they mix their drums is absolutely incredible and can be really exciting when you listen with a spatial audio plugin. It doesn't work for everything, but there are a few where, like Invincible, I don't know what it is about that track. The way those drums open up does it for me. Totally emotional, not rational at all. I like it for that. So, listening through and sampling Apple Music and playing around with spatial audio, it just kept driving home to me. We've had this for years now, We had DTS on the LG V40. I believe Samsung, starting with, is it the S9 or the S10, had some kind of Dolby setting where you could also do like stereo widening. You could also do some early proto spatial manipulation. What was it was Odyssey. Odyssey released a gaming headset. The Mobius. How could I forget the Mobius? God, my brain is Swiss cheese. The Mobius actually uses Waves NX. So Waves, they make all these plugins for musicians and recording software. And they worked with Qualcomm in 2019 to build a platform for audio spatial manipulation. I mean, you can literally like sit in front of a console, pull up a Waves plugin, and place instruments in a 3D space for where they're supposed to be in the mix. But Mobius had that head tracking, had full sonic spectrum. And I believe you can get a Mobius for $400 with planar magnetic drivers, which I'm pretty confident if I went head to head with a Mobius and the AirPods Max, I'd probably dig on the Mobius for $150 less, with all the bells and whistles for spatial audio, head tracking, and the ability to like plug in a gamer style microphone. And we had that last year. We had that a year before, we had that a year before the AirPods Max. And I get so exhausted by this, like, this continual dance of Apple blowing our minds with services that have been around for a while. So I want to be more excited for Apple users, for iPhone owners, that now they've got a simple storefront where they can get this stuff. I don't expect everyone to be like me, where they're going to go to record label web stores. They're going to go directly to artists to buy their music, or they're going to go to websites like HD Tracks to buy like 24-bit 96 kilohertz audio of their favorite albums. I don't expect that. That's not the way that the audio market generally works in the way that we consume audio today. I wish more people would, because it's definitely a better financial incentive for artists to keep making music. But I understand subscription services are really, really convenient. But at the same time, it's like, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've just been drilling it into the heads of consumers that, like, this audio geek stuff, you don't need to care about that. I mean, who even cares about their ears? None of these features could ever be worth it because they're not on the iPhone. If those features were on the iPhone, then those features might be worth it. And now it's like the script immediately flips when we just get higher quality streaming to Apple Music, which we're getting on Spotify, which we had on Amazon Music HD, which we've had on Tidal, which you can kind of create your own version of if you just run a Plex server and you rip your own music from CDs, or you buy high res tracks. So I had a very emotionally complicated listen through on Apple Music. Again, I mean, it's even funny. I don't know if I can find it. Waves NX. I just want to see if I can find the original image. So, the Apple Music image that I'm using for this thumbnail, I can at least show you this. Come on. So if I fire this up here, so yeah, you see, like, it almost looks like an emoji person, but they're surrounded by these like speaker sonic sound waves that are going into their ears because spatial audio is so amazing. Qualcomm used almost the exact same marketing image when they started talking about spatial audio. Let me find audio Qualcomm. So this was in 2020, and they did. The person is facing down instead of facing up. But same thing, little circle waves of audio hitting this person's head. And then let me see if I can find the waves. Because then Waves NX did the same thing with their sort of marketing imagery. Yeah, again. So look, I'm sitting and looking at a laptop, and look at these sound waves that are coming at me from all sides. Whoa, spatial audio. And I believe this website was set up in 2019. Oh, and there's the Odyssey. Yeah, so there's the Odyssey Mobius. So I'm consist. I shouldn't be surprised anymore. I'm not surprised anymore, but I'm consistently disappointed in techies conveniently forgetting this rich history of Dolby Atmos, DTS 3D, LG Sound Engine, creative X-Fi, X-Fi products that can do modeling and audio manipulation. I reviewed a Bluetooth headset that was near budget grade that had head tracking. And the head tracking actually worked with the noise reduction too. It was the Shiver, SHIVR. Headset wasn't built super great. It was kind of plasticky, but they had this audio acoustic modeling for spatial audio. And that was about a year and a half ago. So none of this is even revolutionary. It's barely evolutionary. This is the way that we're going forward. But what I'll be excited to hear is if more producers start taking spatial audio a bit more seriously. I'll be shocked if Spotify and Amazon and Tidal and all these other music streaming services don't have their own version of spatial audio support. If it only lives with Apple, then it's going to die like 3D TVs. But if it finds some broader acceptance from other streaming platforms, then I feel producers will start taking it more seriously. And I think music recorded with the idea of being spatially modeled will be a bigger draw. You know, it's like 3D movies. If you shoot a whole movie in traditional filmmaking technique and then you try and slap a 3D effect on it, it's going to look like garbage. But if you actually try to craft a meaningful 3D effect and you shoot it that way from the very beginning, 3D can be a compelling storytelling tool. I think the same thing is going to ring true for spatial audio. You take a bunch of old remasters of like classic rock and you just kind of stereo widen the whole thing, and you play with a couple little instrument positions so it sounds funky and surrounding you. That's not the hook. But if you're a contemporary artist and you're looking at crafting an audio experience where the viewer is rewarded for listening to spatial audio and how that music surrounds them, that could be really compelling. So that's my shtick. That's my gig. I'm sorry, I missed a whole bunch of stuff. I kind of went rambling off there, didn't I? I'm sorry if I like really hurt anyone's feelings on Apple Lossless. Gary the Fireman, I listened to 8-track tapes through a string and a tin can. Yeah, a lot of people kind of making jokes, you know, the lack of a headphone jack hilariously messing up what their plans are for this future service. From Tornado Ted's, what does hi-fi audio even do? My $550 headphones don't have a jack because it just works. Oh, for a second I thought you were legit asking like, what is hi-fi audio? I was like, we're gonna need another hour on this podcast. But again, McCorcoran 3 is saying it's funny because for years Apple people have had to say that good audio doesn't matter. Now if they want to defend Apple, they have to speak out of both sides of their mouth. The thing is just to conveniently forget. That's it. It's doublethink. I mean, it is. This is hilariously Orwellian marketing. They were right before. Good audio didn't matter because Apple hadn't done it for you yet. Now, good audio does matter because Apple did it. And that's all you really need to know. If you're making a video with the primary focus being iOS users and iPhone and Apple consumers, then there's no rational accounting for why they were panning those features on other products, right? Because those other products, you need to worry about it. And you can always reinforce it with, but those audiophile gatekeepers might be mean to you. So I mean, don't even worry about what they have to say about audio. Because, when it comes to Apple users, we are never, ever insufferable about premium consumer electronics. We're always so nice. We never, ever, ever besmirch other people for owning lesser than products. And I've literally seen that in 2 videos talking about Apple Lossless. Like, they're tripping over themselves to keep reinforcing. I'm not one of those audiophiles. Oh, not me. Oh, no, I would never associate with audiophiles. But you know what? Better audio. Now it's worth it. It's also why I kind of pivot. Like, I'm not an audiophile, and I'm an audio snob. I'm just going to own that even more. Oh, Gorm Lord, I can't afford to be an audiophile is my only problem. I'm telling you, really, really, like, plan a budget, but, like, some decent, like, mid-spec Chinese KZ CCA earbuds. I mean, if you can step up. I keep looking at, like, what Apple thinks is a reasonable price for over-ear cans, and how I could buy a BTR5 DT770 Pros, like, just classic, so well understood closed back headphones, and still have enough money to buy, like, some decent earbuds. And it's so much more well-rounded an audio experience. You'd have, like, something sportier, you'd have something that you can talk on the phone with, and it's very convenient. You have a DAC that can plug into a computer if your laptop or your desktop doesn't have great audio. You can then switch between earbuds and cans. It's phenomenal. And you'd still save cash over buying AirPods Max. I mean, again, if this is now the ceiling that we're putting this at, strategic purchases like that will also live beyond your phone. I have every expectation that my BTR5 is going to outlast at least 3 generations of smartphone. And I don't have to worry about what I'll do for good audio on the go for years. It's great. TK Bay, you need an iPhone 13 Pro Max for a better audio experience. Maybe they'll finally put that DAC back in the phone. Gary the Fireman, ohms, ohms, ohms. McCorcoran 3. The best part about having an LG phone is that anytime you're bored, you just spend $20 or $30 on a different pair of in-ear monitors and get a truly different audio experience. It's much more expensive to get a good, true wireless experience. It's hilarious. I definitely resemble some of that too. Like, I'm going back. I found blondes, and you're like, I never got around to reviewing them, but I might give them just a quick video. And you're like, yeah, they're different. I don't know that they're better anymore. I don't know that this is an improvement, but they're good earbuds. I'm not exactly sure how to, like, position them to like highlight where they might be stronger or weaker than other in-ear buds. TK Bay saying he still owns and loves his Q3. From Goran Petrovic, unless you desperately need ANC, the ATH M50X Bluetooth, I recommend wholeheartedly, can be used both wired and wirelessly. Excellent audio, seems pointless to spend more, really. And this is what I mean, I'm not picking on you, Goran. What I always want the destination to be is an audio consumer learning enough about their ears that they can pick a perfect fit audio solution for them. And that takes time, and it can be a little expensive. But I really hate this Apple notion of, I spent a lot on my AirPods, they must be the best. Why would I use anything else when I'm already using the best? And as we see from numerous consumers, fit, sonic characteristics, tuning, these all have tremendous impacts on our ability to enjoy audio that we don't need to take into consideration when we're looking at, like, a fancy 4K display. And so I would always recommend start out cheap, get some KZs just to start, like some ES4 I think you can get for like $20. Dual driver. I think they're a little muddy, but they're a great way to get into what an in-ear monitor can do that's different than cheap little earbuds that come with your phone. And from there, you start building the education or the language to describe what you like and what you don't like. And maybe you arrive at $400 planar magnetics. Maybe you grab something like the ultrazones. You want something that kind of washes the ear in a different way and it fits your skull in a better with a better clamp. Maybe you end up on DJ headphones. Maybe you end up on a gaming headset. I want you to have the perfect fit for what you like, not. Well, I think that these Sennheisers are the best. So I don't understand why anyone would buy anything else. They're the best. I want to get us away from that winner loser mentality. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, Gary the Fireman. Rush used to pan part of Neil's drums left, typically the higher toms, and then the lower toms hard right. Listening to YYZ off of Moving Pictures, it's magic, and recorded in the early 80s. So they've got a sample of Tom Sawyer on the Apple Spatial audio playlist. And it doesn't sound right. It sounds different. And that's the other thing that's really hard to express. I don't think it sounds better. I just think it sounds different. And I fear that if you go a little too heavy-handed on this type of acoustic manipulation, it's kind of like the audio equivalent of George Lucas wrecking his older films. Like, it burns my soul that I can't get a copy of THX 1138 that hasn't been disgustingly altered with mediocre CG. This should stand as a hallmark science fiction film celebrated in the circles of low-budget filmmaking. High concept, metaphysical, philosophical, science fiction discussion told in 3 acts like a traditional play structure. And I can't watch it for real. I can't see the real version of that movie. I have to see the version that has stupid CG elements and Star Wars sound effects baked into it for no good reason. And that's what my fear is with spatial audio on like older recordings. Like Rush. Rush is a great example of a band that was tactically analytical about how they mixed their audio. And I want to hear what the artist intended, not what a producer felt like would be nifty to hear in 2021. Again, I don't want to be this old cranky man purist. Oh, you need the original. You only could listen to it on a record player with these types of quadraphonic speakers. Like, I don't want to be that, but like, I don't know. When I hear the Beatles and it's wrong, I kind of want to appreciate what the Beatles were able to accomplish with 1960s technology and not be impressed with how we can change the Beatles in 2021. But maybe I should put together like a playlist of how I test headphones. That could be kind of fun. Now listen to The Chronic by Dr. Dre in spatial audio. I don't know. Maybe Chronic might actually not sound bad. Dre's production skill on that could be kind of interesting. The one I wanted to listen to, I was searching through Apple Music and I was like, well, tell us about your particular listening tastes. And I was like, okay, cool. I like Run the Jewels. We can't find that artist. Okay, I like The Roots. You got Things Fall Apart, seminal hip hop album, some of the best like sample work. They're a real band. Great. Oh, that artist isn't on. You're like, what are we doing, Apple? How am I supposed to tell you what I like if you don't have any of the things I like? It was just a bummer. And Gary the Fireman, Tool's approach is very similar to Rush. Absolutely. I'm telling you, man, from Anima on, Lateralis, Fear Inoculum, even if you're not like a fan of this like heavy, like loud rock music, you need to listen to Tool on some good headphones. How they mix their drums is just stunning. You can tell they're going for an epic presentation, right? So many bands try to create this sense of grandeur. So few stick the landing like Tool in the way that they arrange instruments, and then Maynard's voice just kind of cuts through all of this heavy, like with this minstrel sound that kind of floats above all of that. And you're never going to get that on a pair of ear pods. You're never going to experience that on like your AirPods Basic. You need something that's going to fill out that sound just a little bit so that you can really consume what it was that they were trying to accomplish. Oh, Gary the Fireman, Apple definitely needs better curation. Oh, and McCorker 3, you can get like 6 or 7 good pairs of IEMs for the price of the Sony XM4s and have an amazing stack of in-ear monitors. That's hilarious. Oh, that's a great... Okay, we're going to wrap this up on Gary the Fireman's last comment here. Tool is so good. Watch Rick Beto's What Makes This Song Great. He's done Tool twice. I would also recommend... I've only seen one of those videos, so I'll be scurrying off to see what the second one was, because I've obviously missed something in there. But again, when you get an artist that actually cares about the construction of their content, you get artists that are a bit more producer driven. Last night, I was just going down the rabbit hole. I was like, hey man, I need to listen to Run the Jewels 1 through 4 while I'm also testing out some of this Apple spatial audio stuff, even though it's not on Apple Music. It is on Apple Music, which is what drove me crazy. Run the Jewels is on Apple Music, and yet I couldn't use Run the Jewels as an example of artists that I liked for their curation algorithms. Could not understand. Foo Fighters, they found them right away. Run the Jewels, The Roots, no. Tribe Called Quest, I mean, come on. But while I was going down that rabbit hole, I found one of the podcasts that LP and Killer Mike were talking about how they constructed Just off of RTJ4. And just like, yeah, and so we had Zach De La Roca come in, but we were like, hey, Zach, I know you do a lot of hip-hop and stuff, but this is where we need Rage Against the Machine, Zach, and, you really need you to, like, shred some vocal cords. And then over here, we also had, and then, like, Pharrell comes in, and he just drops this hook, and we're like, this is amazing. And just listening to them being, like, fans of these other artists, and then also, but just like, and what we're doing here, and I'm constructing this like quad punch because that's so much like Pharrell's early days, but then we also needed like Rage Against the Machine to kind of shred some guitar sounds over here. It's phenomenal. I love like when you can hear not just like how much they cared. Everyone cares if you're trying to make a piece of media, but just like how historical they were in their application of sound to create a sense of this one piece of music. It's just, RTJ4 is phenomenal. It is just brutally aggressive. So, let's get out of this. I'm already way long. We've gone 2.5 hours. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. I know some of you are dropping like flies. This is going to be an interesting week. I'm going to have some fun stuff up on the channel. Definitely keep an eye out. TK and I will be streaming on Thursday. I'm going to try and do like maybe a little tour of the Gadget Lab now that it's a bit better put together for the Patreon. Really excited. Some good stuff. I'm starting to get videos out better the way I think I should. And of course, I'll also be getting a video out on reviews.org talking about network attached storage. So be on the lookout for that. Headphone reviews, the rugged tablet review, some smartphone content, and I might have a few services and wireless industry news to share along the way. Thank you so much. Folks who subscribing and gifting out gift subscriptions, it just means so much to me for the support, for the conversations, have you all along for this ride, especially when I'm being all dour and cranky about Apple. Apple kicked my puppy that one time. So folks, I want you to have an amazing week with your technology. I want you to do awesome with your tech. I want you to be awesome with your tech. I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be well. Take care. I love you all. Catch you back.